Welcome to the Jen and Jeff podcast. This is actually our second recording. The first one, well, both of us will say it. The recording wasn't awesome,
No.
but we were so excited, and then we kind of got a little deflated. So it still feels like it's number one. So it's 1.5 or 2.0. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But Jen and I decided to do this podcast. We are all about positivity and trying to advance the ball in our lives. And so as we go through our month, the different resources and things that we hear and just kind of talk about life and share a cup of coffee. And for me today, Jen, it's a protein drink.
Ooh,
Yeah.
What's your favorite protein?
Meat. Meat is my favorite protein.
So the funny thing is I had leftover steak. So that's what I munched on the way over here after my workout today.
Breakfast steak.
Haven't been doing breakfast, but I've been kind of doing the intermittent fasting thing, but I was hungry. So I had some leftover cold steak.
So let's dive right into the intermittent fasting, because this has been something. It's funny, like if you haven't heard this podcast before, or you don't know Jen or me, you're gonna go, that's weird. Like you two, like it's weird how things just kind of happen in a month. But we're like, I was just reading something very similar to that. So somewhere God connected this whole thing, and so here we are on the podcast. But the intermittent fasting thing, we were talking about it because kids. Think about, and you have the same view that I do, like cereals, basically like let's put poison in our bodies. But when we were little kids, you would go, hey, I want to have a bowl of cereal, and your mom and dad would whip you one up. And if there wasn't sugar already on it, they would pour some on your cornflakes or your Cheerios or whatever, because we're healthy.
Well, they taste better.
And they taste better.
And that milk, I don't drink milk.
I don't either.
But that was delicious.
It was so good. Sugary milk.
Yeah.
So you would go through that, and then somewhere in high school, and it still continues today. I don't know about you, but all of a sudden you really stopped eating breakfast probably. And being a three-sport athlete in theater and all that stuff, you would have to run kind of hot all day, but yet you'd skip breakfast. And I watch my kids do the exact same thing. And we were talking about fasting, and I said, just look how it naturally occurs in teenagers. It wasn't forced. They're not hungry until they get closer. So they have that 16-hour fast that no one ever told them to. They just naturally do it. And yet people go, boy, I really have struggled with fasting. And I'm like, is our body not supposed to just do it? Because if you just look around, it kind of happens. Now you could also look at obesity across the country too, and see kids that put down a Mountain Dew before they go to class. But you're doing the fasting thing.
Well, so technically I'm trying to listen to my body better. Like, when am I hungry? When am I not hungry? And like, what is it that fuels my body versus, which is why, like, I did have like a bagel yesterday, and so my body was hungry. Like, I just knew that, like, I don't always do like carbs, a ton of carbs, but I do love some sourdough. So I've been like, that's my new thing, is making sourdough. Like, I'm maybe over the top with it. And so I made these sourdough bagels, and I wanted to have some. And so I had a half a bagel yesterday, and I could tell that today I was going to be much more hungry. And so I chose to have protein then instead.
Yeah. So you're talking, I don't want to get off topic, but bagels.
Yeah.
So it's probably not, do you eat a lot of bagels?
No.
I don't either.
But I do, like, I've had this new sourdough bagel recipe, and I made them. And they were
And sourdough now is, we're talking about food. Sourdough is all the craze.
Well, because it's one, I think it's not about sourdough. I honestly think it's kind of like exactly what you talked about for like fasting, right? Sometimes you just naturally do it. I saw something on Instagram, or so I should say somebody shared it. So one thing we'll have to talk about is that I gave up Facebook and Instagram for Lent on my phone. So we'll have to talk about that. But so that grandma's, like, what grandma used to do in her pastime are all the things that now we're doing and bringing us joy, right? So it's like making sourdough, it's gardening, it's like making salsa, it's canning, it's things like that, it's knitting. It's honestly what I think it is it's things that keep our hands busy.
Right.
and we get to produce and make something. And so there is a starting point and there's a finish. And so you feel like I feel accomplished in that, but it is also relaxing at the same time. And so all of those things that we've forgotten how to rest, we've forgotten how to relax, we've forgotten how to like decompress. And so I don't necessarily think it's about the sourdough, although sourdough is delicious. I think it's truly about more the process. It's about utilizing your hands. It's about seeing, like seeing and starting and seeing and finishing. Like that's what I really think it's about.
Well, and I agree. But there's a lot of people like me and my wife. We don't make sourdough. As much as I'm intrigued and I'm like, I want to start a kit, and I have for a long time, probably a decade. Someone brought this
It's
up.
funny.
Like,
I almost just brought you starter today.
See, so I would have taken it,
Yeah,
and I would probably start running with it a little bit. But to your point, like it is becoming kind of a cultural thing, but you also can like find it in more places than you could, and it's becoming like, okay, I go to Breadico.
Yeah.
Obviously they make bread.
Yeah.
But they have the sourdough options. But you go to a pomegranate market, something like that, you got sourdough loaves and all those types of things. And so it feels like more people have gone from just eating, thank God, Wonder Bread and those types of things, more to what you would call a healthier bread. But I also have heard people like, hey, I'm eating sourdough and I have a sandwich at lunch, toast in the morning, and then some, like, holy smokes. Like, just because it's healthier doesn't mean like now I need to just dive in and start eating the heck out of it. Like, that's probably not your best plan for weight loss if that's what your goal is. But the sourdough thing, there's a craze. And because unless, sometimes too, what I think is a craze is just because my algorithm picked up on it and I'm like, oh my God, everyone's talking about it. No, it's just me and my algorithm. Yeah.
I think it does have a lot to do with creativity. I think that it is something that it sounds so weird, but it is a process.
Right.
And like a friend of mine, she's like, there's only so much starter, right? And so you're always having to preserve and maintain it. And when you make sourdough, it doesn't just happen like that. Like it's a 2-day process, right? And so depending upon the recipe you're using and depending upon the weather. So you're always learning. It's no different than you and I having conversations.
Right.
You're always learning. You're always trying to figure out something new. You always want to see like, well, can I do an inclusion? Can I add, cinnamon and raisin? Like, oh, that one didn't work. Can I add cheddar cheese? Can I add whatever it is? So yes, it is a craze, but I think a lot of it is because you get to be creative.
Right. And I kind of relate that to like, for me, someone that likes to go out and hunt and like, especially like deer meat, you can just butcher it and people were like, I just like it on the grill or whatever. But if you want to do something that's more of a jerky, and I'm not a big fan of cured meats, so I like to make it, but have it so it's not going to preserve for a long period of time. But it's the similar thing. It's like you got to take it out of the freezer, thaw it out, then put your seasonings on it, and then you let it marinate, and then you got a whole dehydrating process, and then like there's care and things, and like you have to plan it out and think through it. And I'm one, looks like everyone else, I don't measure anything or record it. So I'm like, oh, that was a great batch. And then the next time, I'm like, I wonder what I did in that made it so good. And then I make another one and I'm like, well, that kind of sucked.
I agree.
So
it's like the smokers, right? So people still use a smoker, men still use the smokers, but I feel like it's kind of died back down because people got, well, I'm just going to grill because it's faster. Right. And so, I think it's the same thing, like whether it be the smokers that were super crazy and like all of that during COVID, all of that, right? We're at home, we're doing more things. And I think that in general, I think humans are looking for ways to find more rest. Find a way to like decompress after all of the busyness. And so I think whether it's hunting, whether it's fishing, whether it's sourdough, whether it's knitting, it could be coloring books, right? Like adult coloring books there for a while, right? Like there's always going to be something there that is going to help us decompress. And we're going to be like, yeah, I want to try that. And honestly, it's either things that our grandmas did
Right.
before, or it's things that we did as a kid.
Yeah, and when you just mentioned the coloring books,
Yeah.
now I haven't jumped back into that, but like I've seen
Yeah.
my wife specifically and then other teenagers and above, color books will show up and they're all scrambling for markers and they can color and then there is creativity in it, even though there's lines and that sort of thing. And but yeah, when you said that, I'm like, that's it. You're
Yeah.
going back to some of the things of your childhood. And why did we all of a sudden say, well, coloring books are for kids?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Or like even sitting at a restaurant and playing tic-tac-toe or
Right.
playing hangman or some of those kinds of things, right? Like, or it's this,
Right.
right?
Well, yeah, because now the
This.
kid can just go off to do it their own thing versus engaging in a game. You know, every restaurant should have the paper
Yeah.
tablecloth
Yeah.
and the crayons. I will admit in my childishness, I've left some things that were somewhat inappropriate, but I knew that it would get cleared before the next guest came. So the only person that would see it, and if they had my sense of humor,
Yeah.
would be the waiter or the busboy, whoever went to clean it up. But I would usually put it under my plate, so it was more of a surprise when
Right.
after I
Fold it
left.
over.
Yeah, like
Yes.
you're gonna want to see this, but I don't want everyone else to see what I did.
Yeah. But I think you're right. Like how many times there's a couple restaurants in Sioux Falls that used to have the paper, right? And they put
Right.
the crayons on it. Definitely were for the kids. But 9 times out of 10, I was taking that and doodling.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but when I am like on a conference call,
Oh,
or if I'm doing something business related, I always have a pen and a paper and I'm doodling. And so if I can have my mind doing something other so that I don't like go read an email or pick
right.
up my phone or do something, there's something powerful in like just and soothing, I'm gonna say even like
Right.
in drawing circles or like drawing boxes or
And fidget tools.
yeah.
Same thing. It is something with the connection of your hands doing something, and it allows you to focus a little bit.
Yeah.
The doodling, yeah, I've created some amazing, really weird artwork.
Yeah.
From doing that, and also I've defaced some people that had put they send me their notepads with their face on it. I make them look all
Yeah.
certain ethnicities and some other
Inappropriate things.
historical characters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So
Give them hats.
huh?
Give them hats and beards and
Oh yeah,
bangs
oh
and all
yeah.
the things.
They, some turn into Hitler. And you go.
What's your go-to like thing that you're gonna make somebody look like?
Usually it's a devil.
Okay.
Not because I feel like there are one, but it's fun to just draw that to make somebody with the horns and all that type of stuff. That one's pretty good. Yeah, facial hair is always really fun. And then give someone that's from European descent a big afro.
Yeah.
That's always kind of fun too.
Right.
Because
So the opposite of what they are.
it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, do some of that. So that's my go-to. And then the eyebrows are always fun too. You can make someone angry or happy or shocked.
Yeah.
It makes it.
Or give them a unibrow.
Unibrows are good.
They are good.
Yeah.
Where is this conversation going? I love
Nowhere.
it.
So
I
tell
know.
me about your social media break. You're doing
Yeah.
this for Lent. You're Catholic.
Yes.
Everyone. I was really disappointed. I have a real estate friend from Detroit Lakes, and he does have. He's part of the real estate association of the Sioux
Yeah.
Empire. So he was down here, and he said, "Hey, let's get together." And since he's from out of town, he's like, "Where should we go?" And I go, "You know what? Let's go to the Crowbar."
Mm.
So if you haven't been to the Crowbar, it's like it's the old traditional,
Yes.
but the interior has been updated.
Yeah.
But and if you're 40s and 50s, it's you're gonna feel right at home there on most nights.
Those bar stools are old
Yeah.
school and great.
And I'm like, let's go there. I thought that'd be an experience. And he sends me a picture back, and he won through a raise event, like gift certificates for the Crowbar. So go figure, right? But we go in. He beat me there, so he's got a glass with beer in it. I order one and I drink mine, and we want another one that comes over, and I see it's this Coors. I can't remember the name of it. It was something. I'm like, oh, and then I looked, and I'm like, well, he's drinking NA, and I'm like, well, what? Because the guy, I've had drinks with him before, and wine, dinner and sort of thing, and he's like, oh, it's Lent.
You gave it up for Lent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
a good one.
Yeah. So I was like, and you're doing social media.
Yeah, so I am not completely off social media because I do think that it is a tool if you can use it for both business and for connection and things like that. But I really wanted to be more intentional about it.
Right.
So I said I couldn't do it on my phone. Then I learned that you can only post Instagram stories on your phone.
Mhm.
You cannot do it. So I go and I just utilize it like once or twice a day. I just make a post and then I leave. And you know what I've learned is that I don't think about it as much.
Right.
And so if you're intentional about it, it's one of those things that you can go, you can do your thing, you can actually connect, and we can do what you say you're going to do with it, and you can use it for a purpose as opposed to being used by it. So I listened to a Mel Robbins podcast. So, did I send you that one? And she had the I think it's called The Healthy Gamer on, and he talked about the psychology of our phones. And then she did a secondary one and talked a little bit about, she goes, and these are the words that drove me crazy. She goes, we live in an attention economy, and our phones are that economy. And she goes, so do you know that you're being played? And I was like, I don't like those words. I do not like being played. And so it was just that piece of it. And that podcast was shared with me after I started this, but I just had this nudge that I just needed to not be on my phone and on Facebook and on Instagram all the time.
Well, and so I'll tell anyone that's listening, if Jen Dykstra's one of your niche viewers, she's not paying attention. So if you're trying to sell her something, she's not paying any attention to it. But it's a good point. So when the first day or two, did it feel different?
Oh yeah.
Is it habitual to like?
Yes.
I mean, for most of us, and I am not the one where if I'm standing in line, I need to pull it out and look at it, and it's become so normal. Like nobody can stand there I look around to see who's on their phone and go, wow. Just never have quite flipped into that world, but I know a lot of people have, and I really try to protect my time with it. And you know what happens in the morning too? You get up and like all of those things that you want to go do, and you'll pull it up just to go, is there something out there I should look at? And then the stinking video comes on, and next thing you know, you're like, oh, there's 10 minutes of my life. And I'm like, I did nothing for myself. And
well, they
great
said
part of
the
the day.
average, actually, that people, when they do that, its averages to be a half hour to an hour.
Yeah, I believe
and
that.
you basically lost that time.
Yep. And I catch myself and I go, okay, you're going down a path that's going to do nothing for you.
Yeah.
Just stop doing this because you're not going to find anything. Do this when you're in a mind frame of you're looking for something specific.
Yeah.
Or you're truly interested in seeing what people are posting, not the videos or the ads.
Right.
Because that's really what it's supposed to be. Just somewhere along the line, it became a economic, turnstile, and so they started to just plow all that stuff in there. But
I think what she also talked about though is like, so the healthy gamer is, I think he's a psychologist. I think his name is, I don't know what his name is, but they call him Dr. K. And he talked about, and he used this analogy, and I'm totally not going to get it right. So you'll probably have to go look for the actual podcast of Mel Robbins. But he talked about basically like in the morning, if you use your phone within the first hour of the morning, have you ever noticed that you just don't feel as productive by the time you get to work? And he goes, so basically like at night, like our dopamine reserves, like get back to balance. So like you and I talk a lot about in general, like getting our bodies to balance, like so that we can function, we can do like our brains work, all the things. Well, so what happens is like basically it's like if you were to cut a lemon and you're going to squeeze out all the juice. Well, if you use your phone within the first hour, you've squeezed out all that lemon juice. And now your brain is like, ooh, I want more. I want more. I want more. And so that's why we go and we pick it back up. And that's where we're like, oh, I wonder who saw my post. I wonder who did this. I wonder what's going on. Like, how many viewers are there? Oh my gosh, I can't believe that there's only 4. I only had 2 comments. Like, what the heck, right? Like, we go into this mental mind craziness, right? Yeah. But it's because we're trying to squeeze more lemon juice out, and there's nothing left to squeeze. And so our brain is like, we need a different kind of hit. We need something different. So it's always searching for more dopamine. Whereas if we were to set our phone aside, is what he said, and we go and we do something productive, like take out the garbage, make coffee, like maybe read the Bible, read a book, exercise, go for your walk, whatever it is. Now you felt productive. Now you'd be like, okay, I've done all these things. I can take 5 minutes and I can enjoy something.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna go and work really hard and I'm gonna be super productive and I'm gonna feel super accomplished. And then that is what fulfills you versus your phone trying to fulfill you.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, and it becomes a crutch. If there's something that you're like, you know, you have to do, but you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
People will pick up their phone to delay the thing that you know that you need to do. And like for me, I wake up in the morning. I will look to see what the temperature is because I'm gonna head outside pretty quick. So I'll get coffee stuff prepared. We do pour over coffee, so it's a process. But I get all that kind of set up and then go right out the door with the dog, do a half-hour walk, and then come back. So about, between brushing your teeth, set everything up, it's 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And then if, like you said, garbage, whatever, it could be up to an hour before I ever get there. And I will attest what you just said. If it's a Saturday morning or, maybe the dog, we had a big adventure the day before and he's kind of just like cruising through. He's just like, all of a sudden you sit down and pull up the phone. It'll go from like 6 to 7 like that. And I'll go, what in the heck just happened?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you look up at the time and you're like, I can't believe what just happened. And like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Nothing. I just sat here, watched America's Funniest Home Videos on my phone, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, I think once you get intentional with it is the key. And then that intentionality created something that you put on there that fulfilled you to say, I put something out there.
Yeah.
There's a guy by the name of Neil Dingra. Arjun is one of the speakers of the event that we're going to have, but Neil is his brother, and Neil is a mortgage guy, built a massive company. He has a show not a show. He has an event every year in Vegas, sells out, thousand plus people show up, and he'll bring in. He's friends with the Ed Milet's and all these big podcasters and all this stuff, but he really became a social media guy through mortgage and then started just developing a brand and all that. But I was watching him recently about something and he had something that was so good and it tied so much with social media. And it was like, do you want to be well known or do you want to be known well?
Yes.
Because he's like, you could have 10,000 followers and nobody will ever do any transaction with you or have any dialogue with you or even think that think like positively about you. And then you're the known well, where it's like you're actually putting something out into the universe that's got some value to it.
Right.
And that really hit home with me because it's like, you can get tied up in the, oh, well, here's something that got 12,000. They got a cool video.
It went viral.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm like, I'm like, I walk through the whole thing and I'm like, it's kind of a scam.
Yeah.
Some of the things that are out there.
And I don't know, probably about 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, I started to put something different out on Facebook than most, right? Like it was always pictures, it was always, and I started to try to either do like a Bible reflection or something like that was inspiring and encouraging.
Right.
And I think it's all a matter of how you use things, right? And that's where that comes in. Like, do you want to be known for the person that's always putting like, I need this, I need that. And there's a time and a place for that.
Right.
To receive that sympathy and to be able to like get the support that you're looking for. But if that's your constant, then you probably need to talk to like a priest.
Right.
Or a pastor or a counselor or a best friend and let them help you through that, right? But I also think that there are things that we can put out into the world so that we can make sure that people have like some encouragement, that they have something positive, and so that they can see your heart, which is the exact same thing. Like, do you know me or do you know like what I post?
Right. Yeah, it's a good connector
Yeah,
with people you never would meet otherwise.
yeah,
And it's, it almost, because of human nature, all the memes begin.
yeah.
Hey, I could
Yeah.
tell by the post that you had.
Yeah.
It went from, all of this other stuff to all of a sudden every day there's this positive message. Oh, you just recently got divorced. I can check your status. It's single, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden there's a bunch of men liking every single post that you
Right.
put out there.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It becomes a meme because human nature says, this is what I'm going
Right.
to cast out there. And like you said, it's almost like a therapeutic session, what they're looking
Mhm.
for, because they want to hear, oh, I feel so sorry for you, or hey, I'm really sympathetic. And if I have the loss of a loved one and I put it out there so my friends and family know,
Yeah.
hey, this so and so meant something to me, or if you know them
Yeah.
and you may not know that they passed, that's an entirely different thing.
So that is real. Like I did see, like somebody's like, hey, did you see that? And I'm like, well, I don't go read obituaries. And then I felt bad because I did miss something. So
Right.
there is some validity in like social media as a search engine.
Right.
In and of itself, it doesn't matter whether you're searching sourdough recipes, whether you're searching to see what your friends are doing. Like people don't do as many invites as they used to, right? And so your events are on Facebook, or like concerts that are coming out, or things that are happening downtown. Like that is the source for people to go to and find things.
Right.
And so there is this balance that you have to kind of set for yourself to be able to know, like, what is it that I'm utilizing this for? So like I think of like business, like the gentleman you were talking about. Like I've heard people say that for business you should only post about 20% of your business and 80% of the things that either you're doing, you're enjoying about your life, like all of that kind of stuff. That gets back to like be known well, right? Like what do I stand for? What do I want people to know about me? That they're only going to know this much versus all of this. But what do I need them to know about me so that when I can get a conversation,
Right.
when I get to have coffee with them, when I actually get to know them, we have a starting point.
Right. Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, no different than whether it's a complete stranger, an acquaintance, you run across someone's name. What most people are going to go do?
Yeah.
You're going to go seek them out to go find out something about them. And like you said, it's now became a warm handoff, so to speak, because I'm not going into it going, well, I'm going to ask, how many kids do you have? Well, I see you have 4.
Right.
What are their names?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and like you already know what they do. There's you can develop some really good dialogue early versus going, well, we're going to go through this first 15 minutes kind of feeling each
Yeah.
other out. You're probably more than halfway home by the time you even get there.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is what I did to kind of grow this last month? What have you been doing to grow this last month?
I think the one thing is, are you familiar with The Chosen?
Yes, I have
Okay.
not watched it, but I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I put this out there, like, I highly recommend it. So, one thing that I think that, the threshold, there's days where I didn't, but it's like I had said before, God kind of goes, this is the day I think you should read this.
Mhm.
And there is some prophetic nature to it. And so, that has still been good, but The Chosen, if you haven't watched it, it's available, if you just go search it up, there's different ways to watch it, but it is a story of Jesus. And we went to the theaters. We were going to go Sunday, but they were going to do, it's 3 episodes for part 2.
Okay.
So this is all developed a Holy Week. So it's basically saying, you've been watching 4 seasons of Jesus's life, not starting from like young. I mean, they're dropping him right in. So
Yeah.
like when he's going to
Into
go,
ministry.
with John the Baptist, and he's like, that's where you're going to catch up with this. Now you're going into Holy Week, right in the Holy Week. And so him coming in on a donkey with the palm branches, and then it's going into, so we went and watched episode 1 and 2. It's in theaters in part 1. Part 2 is episode 3, 4, and 5, but you're 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's hard for me to go say, I'm gonna go spend 3 hours in a movie theater, and a well positioned hour in church on the morning, and then go, now I'm gonna go 3 hours when it's 65 degrees out. That's hard for me to handle. So we decided to not do that yet. But that was one where, just talking with a good friend of mine, over time, we both have kind of developed more into our faith. I mean, and I'm never going to say to anybody that I was like, oh yeah, I've always been a really strong Christian. I wasn't. I battled with alcohol a lot in my 30s, early 40s, and I could probably say into my 40s, but all of that. But at some point in all of that, I did go to counseling because I got in some legal trouble. And that's the moment where everything happened. And I won't go into all of it, but it really got me now to go, okay, there is something, there's a higher power, and I believe it to my fullest. And so I started to really read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Yeah. And I'd finish it, and I'd go back and read Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So this whole story of Jesus was always super intriguing to me. And now you get to watch it unfold under this beautiful cinematic thing. And it goes through the relationships of the disciples and, the bickering and all that type of stuff. And it's just,
they were really just human.
Yeah. And it's so well done. And then you hear some of the backstories of things that really weren't working. And they're like, this is just not going to click. And then the night before, someone goes, I got it. I know how to make this work. And then it does. Or we couldn't shoot and all the actors were leaving and we weren't going to get them back for a month. And as everyone's getting in their vehicles to go to their planes, the sky opened up and they're like, we still have an hour and 45 minutes. The actors came back. This goes back to like season 1 or 2. And they all ran. They go, we don't have enough time to do takes. And they go, we know it. We'll just crank it out in like one take or 2 takes and we'll be on our way. Because they're all like, we got our flights.
Right.
And they go, everybody nailed it. The camera shots where we wanted them. And you're like, God just has his hands and fingers all over this whole project. And so the part 2 is out right now, and then it'll go to part 3 next week. Or I think on the 11th, I think that opens up. So
for Holy Week.
Yeah. And even if you hadn't watched any other parts, you've read it, you know the story. Like my son said, I'm like, well, you didn't get to see the last season, so I don't know. And he's like, Dad, I think I know what's coming. So I think I could probably pick it up somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And, but I would say, as far as growth, listening to that and then talking with my friend who said, I've watched The Chosen and there was a lot of things that I learned because he says it's hard for me to read the Bible. Yeah. And the one thing that really kind of became glaring to me over when we were talking, so we're going to really get to the growth part, something that became really glaring to me over the last probably 2 months. I could sit down and talk to somebody and say, what are you an expert in? And they could probably go 1 or 2 things, and then I'm really good at all these other things and describe in detail all their stuff. What are 2 things in our lives that are probably and at least for me, priority wise, what are the most important things really for probably all humans on earth? One is a higher power, whether you believe in Jesus Christ or whatever it might be. That should be a focus for everybody for all reasons. And then number 2, the thing you have control over, which is your health. Yeah. And if you sit down with most people, where they lack the most, and if they're being honest with themselves, it's their faith, their prayer life, and their knowledge of whatever their higher power may be. And then you can see through the health by most people of like bad choices on what we do with our food, our drugs, alcohol, all those other types of things. And it just kind of hits you all at one time. And you're like, we prioritize so many things except for the 2 things that we really have the most control over, and the things that probably allow us take the vessel and do what you were designed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because those are 2 things that I do first thing in the morning. Is like when I get up, I spend probably anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour in like prayer, devotionals, writing, reading the Bible, and then I go and do like a half hour, 45-minute workout. Somebody said to me the other day, she said, I'm almost jealous that you're doing that. And it makes me like, how do you even fit it in? And I'm just like, sometimes when you can't do it, you have to do it, right? And it's that kind of thing, like, we either choose to do those things or we say, well, I can't do that. And so then like that's the reason why you sometimes have to do it. Yeah. Is when you say you can't, that means you have to do it.
Yeah. And that always becomes you know, it's for almost every excuse that we have.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. And then I usually say, yeah, you're right. I'm so lucky that God gave me 26 hours in a day, and you only got 24. So somewhere along the line, you screwed up. I'm like, we all have the same amount of time, and there's people that do a hell of a lot more than I do and have multiple businesses and all these other things. But you still find time to squeeze it in. And, you know, and you know, for right now we got kids that are involved in this stuff, but whether you have kids or you don't, you filled those other slots in.
Yes.
Or at least I hope you are.
Right. It depends on what you fill it in with, right?
Yeah.
You can fill it in with this.
Right.
Or you can fill it in with reading your Bible.
Correct.
You can fill it in with watching The Chosen.
You could be sitting at the bar.
You could be sitting at the bar. And I think that there are seasons for everybody. Like you just alluded to that.
Right.
Like we all have seasons, but we also all went through those seasons so that you could get to a spot where like, okay, well, this is important to me and I'm going to grow here now.
Mhm.
Or health is important to me and so I'm going to focus on that. Like all of those different pieces come, I always think kind of where we started, for a plan and a purpose and like all of that, because whether it's being us that have to go through the journey to help somebody else get through the journey, or if it's that this is really what we have to do. And then we have no idea what our legacy will be,
Right.
whether we do or don't share it, or right, like, or somebody watching you and you have no idea,
Right.
right?
The growth rings, I always, if you took a tree and you cut it and look at the growth rings, there's so much symbolism in that, because just like us, that center is never right where it's supposed to be. And those rings are never circular. They grow in different ways. And you could tell, like from a tree, like you'll see even like with circles, it starts to extend one, and it's almost like an oval, depending on where the wind blows, or where was the sunlight, or was there something leaning against the tree? Was there a fire? All those scars will show up in the growth rings. And there's moments in time where it got really scarred and then it healed around it and then it grew back. And if you look at growth rings and you really start to do the analogy of like, what does your life look like? Those are the moments in time where, you know, I lost a loved one, I had a divorce, I had bankruptcy, I had this, and then there's other spots where like I really excelled. This were all my accomplishments. This is where all these things were going. Somewhere in your life is, well, in most cases, somewhere in your life there's something great happening, but there's something here that's also probably not.
Yeah.
And so I always look at that whole thing. I did a message on this actually in Fargo for the church during COVID, and they showed it up. But you know, there's so much truth to that on how we grow in the seasons of life. You really start to see it, and probably when you, I don't know, when you get to your around 50 is when things start to kind of go, oh yeah, that thing should probably be more important to me than what it has been.
Yeah. So you just said that you did a message before.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I did a couple. So when we were in Fargo at the church, being someone that's always like to entertain, be on stage, storytell, as most people are like, you're a great storyteller. And I was like, am I? But I'd asked the pastor, I said, you know, if you're ever gone, like, and there's nobody, like, what do you do for a fill-in? Just out of curiosity, because I think every church is a little different. And there was another gentleman who was about the same age as me. He was actually trying to go into the seminary. And so he had done a couple sermons, and he didn't end up getting in. But I looked at that and I said, you know what? I'd love to go deliver a message to the church. And so he was doing a series, and we were going to do something with I don't remember if it was, you know, Slime Giants or what it was. I think he even allowed me to come up with the series, and so then I got to pick. And I said, you know what? The story of David and the Goliath, and it's the Goliath. David, it's like I got the cancer. David and Goliath, I got the diabetes. David and Goliath is a story. And I'm like, I love to tell the story. And I'm like, now little kids will be totally intrigued as well. So you kind of captivate the whole congregation. And so I had to deliver it on a Wednesday night and 2 on Sunday. So I got to do it 3 times. And it was so fun. Writing it was one thing. And then, you know, delivering it is another. And then you're like, okay, well, I missed some stuff. But I was like, I'm not using notes. I did have something up there in case I totally blank out, but I'm like, I know the story. So I just stood up and just delivered. And then once COVID came, he was going to be gone or something and gave me the opportunity to do another one. And then of course I had to do it in front of a video screen and all of that. So which is not nearly as fun as a speaker.
You want to see the people's faces?
Yeah. And it was fun. I brought my son up, who at that time was probably a fifth grader or sixth grader or something like that. And then there was a member in the church who was like 6'7". So I'm like, okay, like who wins this fight?
Yeah.
You know, who needs a bigger heart to win this fight? And so there was so many, little things you could do for props and that sort of stuff. So that was truly an amazing experience. And that's also part of that whole faith journey that I've been on. Just to be able to go through and do those things. And frankly, it allows you to explore, is that my calling?
Yeah.
And I've talked to other religious leaders about that. And they're like, just dive into that a little bit and see if there's something there. At 54 is it too late? And like, no, nothing ever is.
Well, you never know whether or not if you should be on stage doing it.
Right.
Or if you should simply be right here doing it.
Exactly.
Right. You just never know. And so it's just always being open to that stirring. And, like if you felt the need to do it, then try it.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter whether it's faith, if it's like trying a new job, if it's like reaching out to a new friend or whatever it might be. Like sometimes we have this like stirring in us. Like what somebody calls them like a God wink or a tap on the shoulder or right. Like there's a reason and purpose, or like somebody comes to your thoughts and you're like, well, give them a shout. Just say, hey, like we get in our heads about like, oh my gosh, I can't do that, or I can't do this, or whatever the case might be. Maybe it is that we just have to like pick up the phone and say, hey, hope you're having a good day. Like,
right.
It doesn't have to be on purpose, right? Like,
right.
or for a specific reason. It can just be for whatever it's supposed to be.
Yeah, get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna do this and then I don't really have to get engaged. It's like, well, I'm all out of social energy today, so but I feel like I need to do something.
Right.
It's like if you're not gonna come full hard into the, full genuine and all of that, like maybe sometimes it's just better not to. But like talking about that message, it allows you also to do something and try something. And yes, it was really great, but also there's an understanding of going, could I do this every single week and write another one? It was challenging. And so no, not even close to being ready for anything like that. It would take a lot of time. And so God hasn't presented that to me. And so I'm glad you said that, because it's like, can you do that on different levels? Absolutely. It doesn't have to be on stage.
Right.
And sometimes maybe your message carries further when it's not there.
Right. We can all be used in different ways, whether it's in business and personal life and our families and whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're at 43 minutes. You said that we would try to keep these at 45. We'll probably even said less.
Yeah.
Keep it for it's you and me. Is
I
that
know.
possible?
No.
So,
but we did have to share one thing. Do you have a one thing that you would say, or is it the chosen?
Yes. If I had one thing that I would say is, if you're a Christian or you have interest in the life of Jesus, you're just curious, like, pick it up. It's even if it's season 1 or whatever, but to go through, and if you can get through the episodes and not feel something inside of you, I'm like, there's a lot of seasons in there where the episode after episode after episode, you can't get through it without, you're like, I just had something in my eye.
Yeah,
that's all that was. It is like to actually, like, when you see the miracle versus just thinking it takes on a different meaning, and the actors really do a fantastic job of being in and make you feel like you're in that moment.
Yeah.
So I recommend that. That would be my one thing.
I like it. That's awesome.
How about you?
So I was actually thinking about this on the way here. My one thing is actually silence. Yeah. So I think that in this world of craziness, and maybe that's one of the things that I've learned from like not being on Facebook and not being on Instagram a little bit, is that like I am drawn into silence. And it's just, in this world that we live in, it's so noisy, right? Like it's so noisy, and some of that can be our own thoughts. But I've learned that if I can sit in silence, and I'm not great at it, like I'm really trying, but like to just sit in silence for like a minute or 2 minutes. And then eventually I can sit longer. It's very freeing. And it's crazy to think about like the fact that we used to always, our brains were always going, and we had these thoughts that would come to us, or these ideas and this creativity that would come. And sometimes I feel like when we're in like a state of not feeling like we're productive, or not feeling like we're like moving forward, or we're stuck, or whatever the word is that captures you, sometimes I think it's because we have too much noise. And so I strongly suggest people to try to sit in silence daily.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jen, to our listeners, potential viewers, until next time, we will catch you later. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.